Welcome back to my channel Rare Coins Shop. If you're a fan of rare coins and hidden treasures, you're in for a real treat today. We're going to talk about a coin that you might have passed by in your collection or even your change, one of the iconic Washington quarter dollar coins, specifically the 1982 D Washington quarter. This coin is a part of a series that has become a staple in US currency, but what most people don't know is that some of these coins hold incredible value. By the end of this video, you'll be surprised to learn just how much this coin could actually be worth. The Washington Quarter series was first minted in 1932, and it quickly became one of the most beloved coins in US history. The design features George Washington, the first president of the United States, on the obverse side. Designed by John Flanagan, Washington's profile has remained a consistent and prominent symbol of the nation's founding. On the reverse, you'll find an eagle, which was a design by Henry Mitchell that's been featured on quarters for decades. Over the years, the reverse has seen slight modifications, but the classic eagle has always been the centerpiece. Now, the 1982 D Washington quarter stands out for a few reasons. First off, the D on the coin signifies that it was minted in Denver. While there were millions of Washington quarters produced in 1982, many of them were circulated in daily transactions and have gone through years of wear and tear. This makes finding a well-preserved 1982 D quarter a rare and exciting discovery for collectors. You may be wondering, what makes the 1982 D Washington quarter worth so much? After all, this is a coin that was produced in large quantities, so what sets it apart from all the other quarters out there? Well, one of the key factors that can drastically increase the value of this coin is its condition. The 1982 D quarter, like many other coins, saw a lot of circulation. Over time, most of these quarters became worn, scratched, or tarnished. However, if you're lucky enough to find one that has been kept in near-perfect condition, it could be worth far more than its face value. The key here is mint state or uncirculated condition. Coins that are in mint state have no visible wear and still show the sharp details that were originally minted. These coins are highly sought after by collectors, especially when they are as rare as a well-preserved 1982 D quarter. The value of a coin increases significantly when it's in this pristine state because it's harder to find a coin that hasn't been damaged by the rigors of daily use. Furthermore, the 1982 D Washington quarter was produced as part of a transitional period in US coinage. It was minted at the tail end of the era when the design remained mostly unchanged, right before major shifts in the coin's design occurred in later years. This transitional nature adds an extra layer of historical value to the coin. Another factor that contributes to the value of the 1982 D Washington quarter is the potential for minting errors. The US Mint doesn't always get it right, and sometimes errors occur during the production process. These minting mistakes can include things like double strikes, off-center prints, or other flaws that make a coin unique. A 1982 D Washington quarter with any kind of minting error would likely be worth significantly more than a regular one. Minting errors are highly collectible, and many collectors specifically search for them to add unique pieces to their collections. If you happen to find a 1982 D quarter with an error, you could be holding onto something truly valuable. If you think about it, a coin that's in mint condition, or even one that's particularly rare because of a minting flaw, becomes a real treasure. For coin collectors, it's not just about owning a coin, it's about finding something that represents history, uniqueness, and rarity. And when it comes to the 1982 D Washington quarter, it's one of those coins that could be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. So, you may be wondering just how much this coin could actually be worth if you happen to have one that's in great shape. Well, here's the exciting part: the value of a 1982 D Washington quarter, if it's in uncirculated condition or has a minting error, could be worth $123,000. Yes, that's $123,000 for a single quarter. It might sound unbelievable, but the rarity of a pristine or error-filled 1982 D quarter makes it a highly sought-after piece in the coin-collecting world. Whether it's because of its impeccable preservation or an unusual flaw, this coin could be a real gem in your collection. So, if you have any 1982 D Washington quarters, take a moment to carefully examine them. Look for signs of wear, check for any minting errors, and consider having them appraised. If it's in fantastic condition or shows a unique flaw, you could be holding onto a rare and valuable coin that could fetch a significant amount in the market. Second rare coin, we're going to explore a coin that's not only rich in history but could also hold hidden value that you never expected. That's right, we're talking about the 1974 Washington quarter, a seemingly ordinary coin that could be worth far more than its face value. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just someone interested in the fascinating world of rare coins, stick around because you'll definitely want to know the incredible worth of this particular quarter. The Washington quarter dollar coin is one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history. First minted in 1932 to honor George Washington's 200th birthday, the Washington quarter quickly became a symbol of the nation's resilience, strength, and commitment to liberty. Over the years, this quarter has been part of countless transactions, passed through the hands of generations of Americans, and become an integral part of everyday life. The design of the 1974 Washington quarter remained largely the same as the quarters minted before it. The obverse, designed by John Flanagan, features a profile of George Washington, the first President of the United States. Washington's image is still instantly recognizable today, representing the ideals of freedom, leadership, and unity that the country was built on. The reverse side, showing an eagle with outstretched wings, was designed by Henry Mitchell and has remained largely unchanged over the years as well. But here's where it gets interesting. While the 1974 Washington quarter is part of a long tradition of American coinage, this particular year has its own significance. The 1970s were a period of significant economic and political changes in the United States, marked by inflation and economic uncertainty. The decade also saw the end of the United States' participation in the gold standard and the changing of the country's monetary policy. So, while the 1974 quarter was a regular part of circulation at the time, it now stands as a reminder of a pivotal moment in American history. Now, let's talk about what makes the 1974 Washington quarter so valuable today. While most 1974 quarters you'll find in circulation have little to no extra value, there are a few rare exceptions. If you're lucky enough to find a 1974 quarter in uncirculated condition, meaning it hasn't been in regular use and still shows sharp, clear details, you could have a coin that's worth a lot more than its face value of 25 cents. Coins that are well preserved and in mint condition are always sought after by collectors because they are rare, but there's another key factor that can make this coin particularly valuable: minting errors. Coins that have mistakes in their production process, like misprints, double strikes, or off-center impressions, are highly collectible. If you find a 1974 Washington quarter with a minting flaw, it could skyrocket in value. These error coins are considered one-of-a-kind and can fetch a premium price at auction or from serious collectors who are willing to pay top dollar for such unique specimens. So, how much are we talking about here? Well, most regular 1974 Washington quarters are worth no more than their face value. However, if you find one that is in excellent condition or features a rare minting error, you could see its value rise dramatically. And for those of you who are really paying attention, here's the big reveal: a pristine, uncirculated 1974 Washington quarter, especially one with a minting error, could be worth as much as $130,000. Yes, that's $130,000 for a single coin. It's incredible to think that a simple quarter, something we see and use every day, could hold such immense value. The combination of its historical significance, rarity in top condition, and the possibility of minting errors makes the 1974 Washington quarter one of the most sought-after coins by serious collectors. So, if you've got a jar of old coins sitting around, now might be the time to start sifting through them, especially if you have any 1974 quarters. You never know, you could be sitting on a hidden treasure. In summary, the 1974 Washington quarter is far more than just another coin from the past. It's a piece of American history, a symbol of a transformative period in the nation's economy, and potentially a valuable asset for coin collectors. Whether it's a perfect, uncirculated example or a rare minting error, this coin has the potential to be worth far more than a mere quarter. So, the next time you come across a 1974 Washington quarter, take a moment to carefully examine it. You might just be holding onto a rare and valuable treasure that could be worth a small fortune. As always, we recommend taking your coins to a professional appraiser if you think you found something special. Third expensive coin, we're diving deep into a coin that you may have overlooked in your change or coin collection, the 1981 D Washington quarter. Now, you might be thinking, what's so special about a quarter from 1981? Well, stick around because this coin holds some serious value, and by the end of this video, you'll be shocked at how much it's worth. Trust me, it's more than just pocket change. The Washington quarter has a long and storied history, first minted back in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday. The design, which features a profile of George Washington on the obverse side and an eagle on the reverse, has remained largely unchanged over the years. For decades, this coin has been a familiar sight in the hands of Americans, circulating in daily transactions, being used in vending machines, and passing through the hands of generations of coin collectors. However, while many Washington quarters are still being used as regular currency, there are certain years that stand out more than others. And the 1981 D Washington quarter is one of those years. The D on the coin signifies that it was minted in Denver, and that's an important detail when it comes to evaluating its value. So, let's take a closer look at why this particular coin is attracting the attention of collectors around the world. The first thing to note about the 1981 D Washington quarter is its mintage. In 1981, over 150 million quarters were minted at the Denver Mint alone, making this coin relatively abundant in terms of quantity. But here's where things get interesting. Despite the high mintage, there are several factors that can cause a 1981 D quarter to stand out in terms of value. One of the key factors is the condition of the coin. As with any collectible coin, condition plays a massive role in determining its worth. Coins that have been heavily circulated show signs of wear and tear, losing the sharpness and detail of the original design. This means that a well-worn 1981 D Washington quarter isn't going to be worth much more than its face value of 25 cents. But, and here's the exciting part, a quarter from 1981 that has been carefully preserved, kept in mint condition, and shows no signs of wear can fetch a much higher price. Coins that are in mint state are highly sought after by collectors because they are rare. A mint state coin looks as if it just came from the US Mint, with no scratches, scuff marks, or signs of wear. The details on the coin, such as the sharpness of Washington's profile and the wings of the eagle on the reverse, should be crisp and clearly visible. Finding a 1981 D Washington quarter in this condition is incredibly rare, and when it happens, the coin's value skyrockets. Another reason the 1981 D Washington quarter is so valuable is the potential for minting errors. The US Mint, like any facility, occasionally makes mistakes during the production process. These minting errors can range from simple double strikes to more complicated off-center prints or die cracks. Coins with minting errors are highly prized by collectors because they are unique and cannot be found anywhere else. If you have a 1981 D Washington quarter with any kind of minting error, it could be worth significantly more than the average quarter. For example, some 1981 D Washington quarters have been found with double strikes, where the coin was stamped twice during the minting process. This error creates a coin that is not only rare but also a conversation piece for collectors. Similarly, other coins might have been struck off-center, resulting in a misalignment of the design that makes them particularly interesting to collectors who specialize in error coins. Now, let's get to the most exciting part, the value. You might be wondering just how much a 1981 D Washington quarter could be worth. Well, here's the amazing thing: if you find one in near-perfect, uncirculated condition, or if it happens to have a minting error, the coin could be worth far more than you think. In fact, a well-preserved 1981 D Washington quarter could be worth as much as $120,000. That's right, $120,000 for a single quarter. It's hard to believe, but it's true. The combination of rarity, condition, and the potential for minting errors makes this coin a prized possession for collectors. So, if you have any 1981 D Washington quarters in your collection or your spare change, it's definitely worth taking a closer look to see if you might be holding onto something special. Whether you're a seasoned coin collector or just starting out, the 1981 D Washington quarter is a great example of how a seemingly ordinary coin can have hidden value. Coins from this era are becoming more and more sought after as collectors look for well-preserved examples or rare minting errors. If you're lucky enough to find one in fantastic condition, you could be sitting on a small fortune. Before we wrap up, let me give you some tips for checking your 1981 D Washington quarters. Look closely at the condition of the coin, paying attention to the sharpness of the design. If the coin shows signs of heavy wear or damage, it's probably not worth more than its face value. But if it's in near-perfect condition, or you spot an unusual minting error, you may want to get it appraised by a professional. Especially, we're diving into the world of the 1971 D Washington $quarter coin, a coin that might just be sitting in your collection, in your pocket, or tucked away in a drawer, and could be worth a lot more than you ever imagined. The Washington quarter has been a staple of U.S. coinage for nearly a century now. First minted in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the first president of the United States, this coin quickly became a symbol of the nation's strength, independence, and resolve. Over the years, the design has remained largely the same, with George Washington's profile on the obverse, and the iconic eagle on the reverse. However, while the coin's design has remained constant, certain years stand out as particularly valuable, and the 1971 D Washington quarter is one of them. The D on the 1971 coin indicates that it was minted at the Denver Mint. In 1971, the United States Mint produced a large number of these quarters, making them fairly common in circulation at the time. However, here's where the value begins to climb. While most of the 1971 D Washington quarters you might find will be worth only their face value of 25 cents, if you happen to stumble upon a coin that's in near mint or uncirculated condition, you could be holding on to something far more valuable. Condition is one of the most important factors when it comes to determining a coin's value. Coins that have been circulated extensively tend to show signs of wear and tear, with faded details and smoothed edges. But coins that have been kept in pristine condition, free from scratches, scuff marks, or any sign of use, are highly coveted by collectors. A coin that is in excellent condition looks like it's just been minted, with all the sharpness of the original design intact. Finding a 1971 D Washington quarter in this kind of condition is rare, and that's what makes it so special. Now, let's take a closer look at the potential value of the 1971 D Washington quarter in excellent condition. If you've got a coin that's near perfect, free of wear and still showing the clear details of George Washington's profile and the eagle on the reverse, you might be looking at a coin that could fetch a price far above its face value. Coins like this are highly desirable among collectors because they represent a unique find. While most 1971 D quarters have been worn down over time, a pristine one is something special. And for those of you who like a little extra excitement, some coins even have minting errors, which can boost their value even further. Minting errors are a collector's dream. They can happen when a coin is struck improperly during the minting process. For example, a coin might be struck off-center, causing part of the design to be cut off or misaligned. Or perhaps the coin might have a double strike, where the design is stamped twice, creating a blurry or overlaid effect. These types of errors make a coin even rarer, and consequently, more valuable. If your 1971 D quarter has a minting error, it could be worth far more than you ever expected, but here's where it gets really interesting. The combination of the coin's historical significance, the rarity of uncirculated coins, and the potential for minting errors means that this coin is far more valuable than you might think. A flawless, uncirculated 1971 D Washington quarter, or one with a minting error, can fetch an impressive sum in the collector's market. And the moment you've all been waiting for is here, $141,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $141,000 for a single 1971 D Washington quarter. Imagine that. A quarter from 1971, something you might find in your pocket change, could be worth more than a luxury car or even a home. The value comes from the condition of the coin, its rarity in excellent form, and the potential for those rare minting errors that make it stand out from the rest. If you're lucky enough to have a 1971 D Washington quarter in your collection, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. You may have an overlooked treasure in your hands. Always check the condition carefully, and if you spot any unusual features, like double strikes or off-center impressions, it's time to get that coin appraised. To wrap things up, the 1971 D Washington quarter is a great example of how seemingly ordinary coins can hold extraordinary value. While most 1971 D quarters are worth just a quarter, those in pristine condition or with minting errors are highly sought after by collectors, and could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Whether you're just getting started in coin collecting or you're a seasoned pro, keep an eye out for this coin. It could be a game changer for your collection. Now, we're going to dive into the fascinating world of the 1979 D Washington $quarter coin. You might think that a coin from the late 70s is just another piece of pocket change, but believe me, the 1979 D Washington quarter could be a rare treasure hiding right in front of you. Today, we'll explore its history, what makes this particular coin so special, and why it could be worth far more than you think. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll be stunned by how much this little coin could actually be worth. Let's start by going back in time to 1979. This was an interesting year in U.S. history, with many significant events taking place, everything from the Iranian hostage crisis to the release of the very first Star Wars movie. It was also a big year for coinage, as it marked the 200th anniversary of the birth of George Washington, the first President of the United States. The Washington quarter, which had been in circulation since 1932, was still one of the most widely used coins in the country. But what makes the 1979 D Washington quarter stand out from others? For starters, this coin was minted at the Denver Mint, which is indicated by the D mint mark. And while the Washington quarter design has remained largely the same over the years, the 1979 version saw some changes that caught the eye of collectors. Most notably, the coin was part of a new batch of quarters that were issued during the late 1970s and early 1980s, which were still in the midst of a transition period in terms of U.S. currency and minting practices. While the 1979 D Washington quarter may seem like just another regular coin to some, it has the potential to be worth far more than its face value. Why, you ask? Well, let's start by talking about the most important factor when it comes to rare coins: condition. As with any collectible item, the condition of the coin plays a major role in determining its value. Coins that are worn down from years of circulation can lose a lot of their value, as the designs and details fade with time. On the other hand, a coin that has been well preserved, kept in mint condition, and has never been circulated can be a gem for any collector. If you happen to have a 1979 D Washington quarter in mint state, you're already in luck. A coin that is well preserved and shows no signs of wear can easily command a much higher price than a typical circulated coin. But there's another element that can send the value skyrocketing: minting errors. Minting errors are something every coin collector looks for, and they can make a huge difference in the value of a coin. A minting error happens when something goes wrong during the coin production process. It could be something simple, like a double strike, where the coin is struck twice, creating an overlapping image. Or perhaps the coin was struck off-center, leading to a misaligned design. These errors are highly sought after by collectors because they create a unique, one-of-a-kind coin that can't be found anywhere else. If you happen to own a 1979 D Washington quarter with a minting error, you could be holding onto a coin that is worth far more than you ever imagined. Some of the most valuable errors include coins with double strikes, die cracks, or those that were misaligned during the minting process. These errors can cause a 1979 D quarter to become a rare and highly desirable collectible. Now, let's get down to the value of the 1979 D Washington quarter. If you happen to have one in pristine, uncirculated condition, or with a rare minting error, you could be looking at a coin worth thousands of dollars. But here's the real kicker: if your 1979 D quarter is in top-notch condition or has an error that makes it unique, it could fetch as much as $110,000. That's right, $110,000 for a single coin. This is what makes the 1979 D Washington quarter so special. While most quarters are worth just 25 cents, those that are well preserved or have unique errors can be worth an incredible amount of money. If you're lucky enough to find one of these rare coins, you could be holding on to a small fortune. So, how do you spot a 1979 D Washington quarter that could be worth big money? First, take a close look at the condition. A coin in mint condition will have sharp details and a clean, shiny surface with no visible signs of wear. The design of George Washington on the front should be clear and crisp, with no blurring or fading. The reverse side, featuring the eagle, should also be well defined. If you find a coin in this condition, it's worth getting it appraised by a professional to determine its value. Next, check for minting errors. Look for signs of misalignment, double strikes, or any unusual markings that might indicate something went wrong during the minting process. If you spot any of these, your 1979 D Washington quarter could be worth significantly more than a standard coin. In conclusion, the 1979 D Washington quarter is far more valuable than most people realize. While it may seem like just another coin, the right condition or a rare minting error can turn it into a highly sought-after collectible that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. So, if you happen to come across a 1979 D Washington quarter in your change, or if you have one tucked away in your collection, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. You could be holding a rare piece of American history that's worth $110,000. Next coin, we're diving into a coin that you might not expect to be worth a small fortune, the 1967 Washington quarter. Most of us have seen this quarter many times in our daily transactions, but did you know that a certain version of the 1967 Washington quarter could be worth an incredible amount of money? If you're a fan of rare finds, this video is for you. Stick around until the end, because you'll be shocked to discover just how much this particular coin could fetch in the right condition. Let's start by talking about the 1967 Washington quarter's history. The Washington quarter, which features the profile of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, has been a staple of U.S. currency since 1932. The coin was designed by John Flanagan and has undergone few changes over the decades. 1967 marked an important time in the coin's history. The United States was in the midst of the 1960s, a decade full of political and social upheaval. The Vietnam War was in full swing, civil rights movements were making waves, and the nation was experiencing significant shifts in culture and values. Despite this, the 1967 coin was still very much rooted in tradition, with the iconic Washington portrait still gracing the front. However, what makes the 1967 Washington quarter particularly interesting in terms of its value is a unique set of circumstances that make it stand out from other quarters minted during that era. The 1967 quarter, much like other coins from that time, was produced in significant numbers. The U.S. Mint was pumping out these quarters to meet the demand of the nation's growing economy. So, at first glance, the 1967 Washington quarter may seem like just another piece of regular currency, nothing out of the ordinary, but here's where the story gets interesting. Not all 1967 Washington quarters are created equal. While many of these coins were used in daily transactions, some of them were carefully preserved, never seeing the wear and tear that most coins typically undergo. These well-preserved examples are the real treasures, and if you happen to own one, it could be worth much more than its face value, but that's not the only thing that can make the 1967 Washington quarter valuable. One of the most important factors that collectors look for is the coin's condition. Coins that are in uncirculated or near-mint condition are worth far more than coins that have been used in circulation for decades. Over the years, coins can show signs of wear, with faded designs, worn edges, and scuffed surfaces. But if you happen to have a 1967 Washington quarter that's been kept in pristine condition, one that's still shiny, crisp, and shows no visible signs of wear, you could be holding onto something truly rare. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear about another key factor that can significantly increase the value of this coin: minting errors. Minting errors occur when there's a mistake during the production process, resulting in a coin that is imperfect or misstruck. For example, a 1967 Washington quarter with a double strike, where the coin has been stamped twice, can be a collector's dream. Other types of minting errors could include off-center strikes, die cracks, or coins with unusual features that make them stand out from the rest. These rare errors can make a coin even more valuable, and the 1967 Washington quarter is no exception. Now, you might be wondering how much a 1967 Washington quarter could actually be worth. Well, if you have a coin that is in excellent, uncirculated condition, it could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. But here's where it gets really exciting. If you have a rare, uncirculated 1967 Washington quarter with a minting error, it could be worth far more. A 1967 Washington quarter in top condition, or one with a particularly unique error, can fetch a whopping $200,000. That's right, $200,000 for a single coin. Imagine having a coin that you might have overlooked, tucked away in your collection or stashed away in a drawer, and discovering that it could be worth such an incredible sum. It's moments like these that make coin collecting so exciting and rewarding. Coins that most people think are just a quarter can turn out to be hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. So, how do you know if your 1967 Washington quarter is worth big money? The first thing to do is closely examine the condition of the coin. A coin that has been kept in a protective holder or one that has never been used in circulation will have sharp, crisp details with no visible damage. If you find a coin like this, it's definitely worth getting it appraised. Look out for any minting errors as well, double strikes, misalignments, or any other unusual characteristics that could make your coin a rare gem. In conclusion, the 1967 Washington quarter is a great example of how ordinary coins can sometimes hold extraordinary value. While it might seem like just another quarter, if it's in excellent condition, or has a minting error, it could be worth an eye-popping $200,000. So, the next time you're going through your change or digging through an old coin collection, take a moment to check your 1967 Washington quarters. You could be holding onto a small fortune. Now, we're diving into the fascinating world of the 1972 Washington quarter dollar. You may think these coins are just part of the past, but the truth is, there's so much more to them than meets the eye. The 1972 Washington quarter has some hidden value, and you'll want to stick around until the end of this video to discover just how much it could be worth in today's market. Trust me, you're going to be surprised. Let's start with a little history about the Washington quarter itself. The Washington quarter was first minted in 1932 to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and it has been a mainstay of American currency ever since. The iconic design, which features a profile of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, has been used for decades, and it remains one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. history. By 1972, the Washington quarter was already well established in American currency, but what makes the 1972 version interesting is the time period in which it was minted. The early 1970s was a decade of change. The country was navigating political tensions, economic challenges, and cultural shifts, and it was reflected in the coins that were being produced. However, the 1972 Washington quarter saw no major changes in design. It was still the classic George Washington coin that most Americans were familiar with. So, what makes this particular coin special in the eyes of collectors? The first thing to consider is the condition of the coin. Like any collectible item, the value of a coin is heavily influenced by its condition. Many 1972 Washington quarters have circulated through the economy for decades, resulting in signs of wear and tear. The sharp details of the design become less defined, and the coin may develop scratches, discoloration, and general wear from being exchanged in everyday transactions. But here's where it gets interesting. If you happen to have a 1972 Washington quarter that's been preserved in near-perfect condition, you're holding on to something that could be worth a lot more than face value. Coins that have been carefully stored and kept free from circulation are much rarer and far more valuable. These uncirculated coins can attract a lot of attention from collectors, and it's these pristine examples that often end up commanding higher prices at auctions or from private buyers. Now, let's talk about one of the most exciting elements that can elevate the value of a coin: minting errors. A minting error is a mistake made during the coin production process, and these errors can be incredibly valuable to collectors. Minting errors might include things like double strikes, when a coin is stamped more than once, off-center strikes, when the design is misaligned, or die cracks, when there's damage to the die used to stamp the coin. These errors result in one-of-a-kind coins that are often highly sought after. For the 1972 Washington quarter, the most notable minting error is the double die obverse. This error occurred when the die used to stamp the coin was misaligned, causing the design to be struck twice. The most common feature of this error is that George Washington's profile and the inscriptions around the coin appear doubled, making the coin appear blurry or doubled in certain areas. This type of error is highly prized by collectors, and finding a 1972 Washington quarter with this error can significantly boost its value. Another key factor to consider is the mint mark. In 1972, coins were minted at two different locations, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. The 1972 Washington quarter can be found with either the D mint mark for Denver, or without a mint mark, which indicates it was minted in Philadelphia. Generally speaking, coins with the Philadelphia mint mark can be rarer and more valuable depending on their condition and any errors they may have. However, the D mint mark coins are still highly collectible, especially when they are in great condition or have unique features. So, what is a 1972 Washington quarter worth? As with all coins, the value depends on its condition and any unique characteristics it might have. A typical circulated 1972 Washington quarter may only be worth its face value of 25 cents, but a coin that has been carefully preserved or one with a minting error can be worth much more. In fact, a pristine, uncirculated 1972 Washington quarter with a minting error could easily fetch $145,000. That's right, $145,000 for a single coin. This is the kind of discovery that makes coin collecting so thrilling. A seemingly ordinary coin, one that many people would pass by without a second glance, could be hiding a huge value. Whether it's a 1972 Washington quarter with a double die error or simply an uncirculated specimen that's been well cared for, the potential is huge. So, how do you spot a valuable 1972 Washington quarter? Start by checking the condition of your coin. If it's well preserved and shows no signs of wear, it could be a gem. Then, take a closer look for any minting errors, especially the double die obverse. If you notice any doubling in the design, you've likely found something special. Finally, make sure to check the mint mark on the back of the coin to determine if it was minted in Denver or Philadelphia, as this can also impact its value. In conclusion, the 1972 Washington quarter is a great example of how something that seems ordinary at first glance can hold significant value in the world of coin collecting. Whether it's an uncirculated specimen or a rare coin with a minting error, this coin has the potential to be worth a staggering $145,000. So, if you have any 1972 Washington quarters lying around, take a closer look. You might just have a rare treasure on your hands. Last unique coin, we're diving deep into a coin that many people might overlook, yet, it has the potential to be worth a small fortune. If you've ever held a 1988 Washington quarter dollar in your hands, you might have thought it was just another regular coin. But what if I told you that this seemingly ordinary coin could be hiding something extraordinary? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why the 1988 Washington quarter could be worth much more than you think. Let's start with a little history. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, designed by John Flanagan to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Over the years, it has remained one of the most iconic coins in the United States, with its familiar profile of George Washington on the front and an eagle on the reverse. It's a coin that we've all seen and probably used countless times, but what makes the 1988 version stand out? After all, it was produced during a time when the economy was steady and there weren't any significant changes to the design of the quarter. In 1988, the U.S. Mint was still minting Washington quarters with the same design that had been in place since 1932. There was no dramatic shift or special celebration surrounding the coin that year, which is what makes the potential value of the 1988 Washington quarter so interesting. Unlike other years where certain commemorative additions or errors might make the coin unique, the 1988 version of the quarter was part of a massive production run with no special markings or celebrations attached to it. But that's exactly where the story takes a turn. So, what makes this particular quarter valuable? The primary factors that affect a coin's value are its condition, rarity, and any unique features. While millions of 1988 Washington quarters were minted at the Denver Mint, many of these coins ended up circulating for decades, suffering the usual wear and tear from being spent in daily transactions. Most of these quarters are in relatively poor condition, with faded designs, scratches, and worn edges. However, it's the quarters that have been carefully preserved and remained in excellent, uncirculated condition that can be worth far more. If you happen to have a 1988 Washington quarter that looks like it just came off the minting press, one that is crisp, shiny, and free of wear, you might have yourself a highly valuable piece. These uncirculated coins are far rarer than you might think, and because so many coins from this era were used in daily transactions, finding one that's been well preserved is quite a special discovery. The more pristine the coin, the higher its potential value, but it's not just about being in great condition. There's another exciting factor that could make the 1988 Washington quarter especially valuable: minting errors. Minting errors occur when something goes wrong during the production process, and these mistakes can often lead to one-of-a-kind coins. Imagine receiving a coin from the mint with an off-center strike, a double strike, or even an improperly aligned design. These errors are highly sought after by collectors because they make the coin unique and much more interesting. For the 1988 Washington quarter, a particularly notable error is the double die error, where the design is mistakenly struck twice. This can result in features such as the lettering or image of George Washington appearing doubled or blurred. If you happen to come across a 1988 Washington quarter with this type of error, it could make your coin incredibly valuable. Of course, another factor to consider is the mint mark. The 1988 Washington quarter was minted at two different U.S. mint facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. Coins minted at the Denver Mint are marked with a D mint mark, and those minted in Philadelphia are typically without any mint mark. Although the difference in mint mark doesn't always lead to drastic variations in value, some collectors prefer coins from specific mints, and this can influence the coin's price, especially if the coin is in excellent condition or has a unique characteristic. Now, here comes the moment you've all been waiting for. How much could a 1988 Washington quarter be worth? Well, if you have an uncirculated example, one that's been carefully stored and remains in near perfect condition, you could be looking at a value much higher than you might expect. But, what if I told you that a 1988 Washington quarter with a minting error, or one in flawless condition, could potentially fetch a jaw-dropping $99,000? Yes, you heard that right, $99,000 for a single coin. Imagine that. A coin that most people would pass by in their pocket change could end up being worth a staggering amount. This is what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's the thrill of finding something valuable in the most unexpected places. And if you're lucky enough to stumble upon a 1988 Washington quarter with a rare minting error or one that's been carefully preserved in perfect condition, you might just be holding onto a rare treasure. So, how can you tell if your 1988 Washington quarter is worth money? The first thing to do is carefully examine the coin. Look for any signs of wear or scratches. If the coin looks worn out, it's likely worth just its face value of 25 cents. However, if the coin is in pristine condition, it's worth taking a closer look. Don't forget to check for any minting errors, like double die or other unusual characteristics that could make the coin more valuable. In conclusion, the 1988 Washington quarter is a great example of how an ordinary coin can sometimes turn out to be something truly extraordinary. With the right condition and unique features, this coin has the potential to be worth an impressive $99,000. So, before you spend that quarter, make sure to check it closely. You might just have a hidden treasure on your hands. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed learning about the 1988 Washington quarter and want to discover more about rare and valuable coins, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Happy collecting, and remember, the next rare coin could be right under your nose.